Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Yeah, it's been a while since I've uploaded anything of terrible interest to you folks. So here goes. This is some footage that I shot way back in the summer, in fact. So it's been a while since I've actually been able to get this edited and uploaded to you guys. While I was working on some freelance work this summer up in Norway with Pilot Flight Academy, the manager of Pilot Flight Academy very kindly let me fly up with him in his T-6, or his Harvard. In Europe, of course, we call it the Harvard. In America, of course, it's the T-6, or the Texan T-6, or the AT-6, depending on what kind of variant it is. So here I'm just in the cockpit. I'm sitting in the back seat, and he's sitting in the front. And I was just looking over the controls here, as you can see. The throttle, the mixture, the propeller, all of that kind of thing, the trims, the flaps, and just looking over the gauges. And the reason I'm recording my audio now as a narration after the fact is because when he asked me to, I'm just actually going to pause here for a second.
Are you still okay back there?
Yep.
Okay, very good.
I'm just having a look at the instruments.
Yeah.
Yep.
Quite different from the Diamond.
Oh yeah.
It's the same information though.
Yeah. I actually feel more comfortable with gauges than glass cockpit.
So it was when he asked me on pretty short notice. Actually, I think one of the secretaries came up into the briefing room and said, would you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much would you like to fly with Frode in the Harvard? And I kind of looked at her and I was like, 11. So yeah, so he allowed me to fly in the back seat, and he actually gave me a go. And so I got the chance just to handle the Harvard for a while over the Oslofjord in southern Norway. Beautiful, beautiful day, as you'll come to see. You can see he's just started up the engine here. I'm poking the camera out. So yeah, sorry, as I was saying, the reason why I'm recording audio of my speaking over the video after the fact is because it was such short notice that I didn't have any time to set up any kind of GoPros or audio equipment or anything. This was just completely impromptu. I had just finished an afternoon of just editing some rushes that I'd shot the day before and earlier on this day, and it was a lovely afternoon. And he was going up in his T6. He was doing some circuits and different things, and he popped in and he very kindly said, you want to have come up with me, come flying, and yeah, it was absolutely beautiful. The T6, or the Harvard, is just another flying experience altogether. The way it handles, the way it feels very solid. It just feels like it's made out of, I don't know, some sort of kryptonite brick. That it doesn't flex, or it doesn't feel like it flexes at all in the air. It just kind of I don't know. And whenever you pull the engine out, whenever you're, say, on a short final, or on you're turning, downwind to base and then to final, when you pull that throttle back, it drops like a brick. Now, I'm saying all this in comparison with, say, a Cessna 172, or, for instance, a Diamond DA-40 or a Diamond DA-42. Those aircraft are quite modern in comparison, and they are training aircraft, which means they're designed to be forgiving. They're designed to be to glide for a longer distance. They're designed to be lighter on the controls and so forth. This is a World War II trainer. This was a World War II radial engine trainer that was designed to give the pilots a sense of what it would be like flying a radial engine World War II fighter aircraft before they actually strapped one in, before they strapped one onto them. And the T-6 was a huge advantage to the Allied forces, or the American training system at that time, because in the war above the ground. You know, in aviation, excuse me, in aviation in World War II, you know, you had the German pilots, you had the Luftwaffe. A lot of their veteran pilots, after they had all died out on the front lines, there were not many veteran pilots to train the student pilots going into the Luftwaffe. So it got to the point where the Luftwaffe, sorry, was sending up younger, inexperienced pilots, which just couldn't keep up with the training curve. The American training, I remember reading all this. I think most of what I'm saying actually is in the A2A T-6 manual. If you've got that add-on, definitely go and pick it up and read it. In fact, flying the A2A T-6 before actually getting into this in real life was amazing, because as soon as I strapped into the back seat of this Texan, I just felt familiar with it. I felt familiar with the dashboard, the gauges, the instruments, the controls. It was amazing just how I can fly something in a simulator and then it crosses over so well into real life. So almost scarily so, as I'd say. And so, you know, we flew out. Actually, you can probably see what we're doing now as we're flying out towards the coast. We're flying out towards the water here, and there's these tiny little islands everywhere you look, and the coastline is very kind of rough and jagged. Ironically, this is pretty much one of the flattest places in all of Norway, southern Norway, and so and even then it kind of looks like pretty rugged. I did, as I was flying along, of course I wasn't able to actually film while I was flying, because this is my Panasonic GH4, and I do apologize about the exposure. I'm continually changing exposure settings constantly as I'm pointing at different things, and I'm just it's so impromptu. I'm trying to look at everything at once and just soak everything in. But flying the T-6 was just beautiful. We flew out to a little lighthouse on a little island along the coastline here, and he said, you know, you can have a go now. And he said, do some banks and turns, and make a turn and try and keep the lighthouse off the wing in a continual turn, that kind of thing. And I got to play around with the way, just getting a feel for the handling of the T-6 and using the rudder. That was a lot of fun, actually. Getting a sense, in the seat of your pants, how a plane like this feels when you put a turn in without rudder, and then you put a turn in and then you put in rudder as well. What happens if you put opposite rudder in? What happens if you wiggle the rudder back and forth? What does that feel like? How steep of a turn can I get away with? And as I pull into the turn, gravity kind of presses me down, and the centrifugal forces press me down into the seat. All of this is what you experience in something like this, but you never get that in the simulator. And I think it's such a huge part of aviation, which unfortunately you will never get in a simulator. But at least the fact that I had flown the T-6, the A2A Simulations T-6 add-on, it just prepared me so much more for this tiny little impromptu flight than I ever could have had before, I think. So this, while I've been talking, we've been flying around, and I was doing my stuff, and I just popped the camera on at any time that I wasn't flying. I wanted to capture as much as possible. This is why you're seeing footage which, to be honest, I mean, most of this in a proper video, I would just cut all of it out, just because it's shaky, the exposure isn't correct, the focusing isn't correct, it's and the audio is noisy. I've toned down as much of the audio as possible, of course, but the reason I'm putting all of this in is just because it was just so impromptu, and it's just so really, really beautiful, just to take a break from the DA-40s, the carbon fiber, plasticky, glass cockpit trainers, which were just, by comparison, they felt so sterile, so it's just you fly the numbers. It's all about numbers and figures and mathematics, and of course that's what modern aviation is about, and it's very important that is what you train, and that is what you know and understand. But I think the T-6 just brings a different era of aviation. You know, you can experience it, and yeah, that's pretty much all I felt like I needed to say in this video. This footage, by the way, was shot in May of 2017, so this was this last summer. And the reason why I haven't been getting the PPL series on my channel done properly is because I've been, you know, every spare minute where I feel like doing more work after I come home from my day job, I spend video editing for Pilot Flight Academy, because I'm creating a training series for them. So and that's a lot of fun. I've still got a lot of footage to go. Oh, that is proper bouncy there. But yeah, so I've got a lot of work on, but and the last 6 months has just been trying to pick up jobs which just haven't worked out. You know, throwing all my full-time energy into 2 different jobs, which after 3 months each just kind of have turned out to be. So what I'm doing is I'm returning to a part-time job and part-time freelance video editing and videoing and photography for various people. My main people, of course, at the moment is Pilot Flight Academy, because they've got a lot of work. There's a lot of videos need to get edited, and when editing videos and editing details for, say, aviation training, like, everything has to be perfect. It has to be accurate. It has to be, you know, exactly as it says on the tin, because, you know, the standards of training in aviation are very high, and you know, you can't have mistakes in training. You know, in any kind of training material, it all has to be, you know, proper and accurate, which is great. I'm learning so much about just so much about everything, how they do certain procedures and everything. Okay, so we're on a short kind of base turn. All of the turns that Frode were doing, he was doing downwind legs which were really close to the runway, and then his base to final turn was literally 180 degrees turn. There was no base leg and there was no crosswind leg. It was just a downwind, and then you turn on to final. And I don't know if you saw just while I was speaking there, that left-hand gradual turn, we lost so much altitude in that turn. It was a bit breathtaking how quickly this thing falls out of the sky once you don't have that big radial engine on the front actually thumping you through the sky. And that's me trying to survive. It's really shaky footage, but it was so much fun. I think he does a touch and go here and goes up again. We went around a couple of times. But anyway, folks, I knew in the back of my mind that I had this footage. And there's Torp Sandefjord in southern Norway. There's the Pilot Flight Academy buildings. There's the EHC helicopter training center as well, the Flappy Flappies. And then, of course, as we come level with the other hangars, you can see KLM, you can see Videre -8. You also get WOW aircraft, or Wizz Air. No, sorry, not WOW. You get Wizz Air Airbuses in there, as well as Ryanair 737s. Beautiful countryside. Look at that shadow there on the ground. And Norway is just so breathtaking, especially from the air. And I really miss it. In the last, 3, 4, 5 months maybe since I've been there, I've just missed the terrain and yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it looks like we're on our final circuit here. I'm just going to shut up now, and you can just listen to the audio properly for the rest of the clip. So, thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.